little bit daunting. I feel like my voice is like, is it loud enough?
Yeah.
Is it too loud?
No, you can.
Cool, okay. So, yesterday was actually World Mental Health Day, and the theme was mental health in the workplace. So I just thought I'd quickly share some of my experience in employment and how it's affected my mental health. In 2008, I got my first weekend paid job with Primark on Northumberland Street, and people underestimate being a sales assistant. I was especially trained to do the fitting rooms, and there was no, on the tills they had like a little button so you could press it for security if people got abusive or someone tried to steal something. But on the fitting rooms there was no bell for security, and I got a lot of abuse from customers, which sounds very strange considering it's a fitting room in Primark, but everybody was quite irate in the place, and I think the stress really got to my mental health, and I ended up experiencing auditory hallucinations in 2009. After about 10 days of the hallucinations, I just felt like I couldn't take it anymore, and I made my first suicide attempt in 2009. I was sectioned for a while, and then I was kind of in and out of hospital for the following 3 years. In 2012, I made another suicide attempt and was on life support that time afterwards. I was sectioned after that for 2.5 years, and while I was in that hospital, it was a specialist one, and it was in Bradford, so it was over 100 miles away. It was really hard to be away from my mum and my friends, especially for that long. So I started a blog. It's called I'm Not Disordered, and I used it to better communicate with my friends and my family who were miles away. I also liked that it helped, it was quite therapeutic for me to get everything out of my head and onto this blog and sort of writing everything down. It just reached last week 1.5 million readers. So kind of like Steve said about, you don't expect things might turn out the way that they do. And back in 2012, coming off life support and being sectioned, I never thought I would be in the place I am today. In June this year, I started a media campaign called Shake My Hand. The name came from when I was a teenager. I was actually abused and raped on one occasion. When I reported the abuse to my abuser's employer, he called me a manipulative liar, and I was told to leave the building. While I was waiting for my mum to come and collect me from the building, I saw the employer and my abuser shaking hands and laughing. That's where the name came from for the campaign. It now has 7 volunteers under me. So I feel like I've seen both sides of being the employee and now having been an employer. It's really helped my mental health, the campaign, and I feel like I really enjoy being productive and keeping busy. And I think it's good for your mental health to kind of stay distracted from things. But I feel like it's important to get a balance between distraction and denial, and sort of feeling like you've just sort of bluffed your way through the thing and you haven't reckoned.
It's all right, boy.
I was in a rhythm there. Thought it was my iPad, and I was like, why does it make that? Does anyone know where I was up to? The campaign volunteers. Being productive. So I get my work ethic, I think, from my mum, who's over there, so I'll give her a shout out like Steve did with his. She's a fantastic woman. She's very strong and very brave, and I really admire her. And whenever she's been able to work, she has worked, and I feel like I've adopted that attitude, and that if my mental health's in a place where I can be keeping busy and helping others in work and for organisations, then I do. And I just think that there's a lot of stigma against people with a disability, and especially with mental health, in thinking that they just sit on their bums and get benefits and just take the mick out of the system and aren't sort of actually trying really hard to stay alive. People don't recognise that. So I guess a little bit of a thought or advice would be to stay productive, to remember that you can help others and that can be helpful for you too, and to stay strong. And like Steve said, there's support out there. if you are working, never feel like you can't speak up if it's affecting your mental health, because if you don't speak up, it can just escalate and get to a point where it's even harder to get help and support than if you'd done it in the first place. I think that's it. I've got some business cards with the campaign and my blog on for the address and things, so if you're interested, come and see me afterwards and I'll give you a card.